The time was 10 p.m. Japan's Coast Guard had just been caught in a firefight against a mysterious vessel drifting in the East China Sea. The confrontation would last throughout the night and end in a massive explosion as the unidentified ship would suddenly self-destruct. Nobody knew what the ship was doing out there, what was its mission, and where did it come from. By the end of the night, the mystery was deeper than ever, since this wasn't just a rogue ship, it was part of something much more dangerous. Earlier that day, on 22nd of December 2001, the Japanese Coast Guard received intel about a suspicious ship sailing alone near Kyushu. Emergency protocols were immediately activated as rogue vessels like these are taken extremely seriously, since an unidentified target so close to the mainland isn't just a potential threat to civilians, it's a national security issue. After 5 hours of scouring the ocean, a Japanese anti-submarine aircraft was able to confirm the location of the mysterious vessel, 230 kilometers away from the nearest land, floating in the ocean. From the outside, the ship appeared to be a fishing trawler with a Chinese Changyu 3705 marking on its side. But upon closer inspection, something wasn't right with the boat. It seemed to lack the typical fishing gear a boat like this would normally have, and also showed no heat signature, as if it was trying to hide from the Coast Guard's infrared cameras. When Japan's patrol vessels arrived and attempted to make contact, the ship remained silent. Then suddenly, without a warning, it began moving towards international waters at a speed no ordinary fishing vessel should be capable of. It was clear that this was no ordinary boat and letting it go wasn't an option. With the vessel refusing to stop, the situation had quickly escalated into a high-speed pursuit in the waters, which required the Coast Guard to shift into combat readiness, since now nobody knew what would happen next. While Japan prepared for the worst, the target began zigzagging through the water, attempting to move unpredictably in order to shake off its pursuers, even ramming into the Coast Guard's boats to signal them to back off. Every second the chase continued, time kept running out. As the suspicious ship pushed towards international waters, Japan had no other option left but to issue the final warning. With no one knowing who the ship belonged to, a single wrong move here could mean military escalation. But with time running out, the Coast Guard, knowing the risks, decided to pull the trigger. The tracer bullets flew across the ocean, directly hitting the ship's reserve fuel deposits, causing a fire on the deck. But even under this direct fire, the enemy ship refused to stop, only making the crew on board come outside and assess the damages while still trying to escape. With the target not giving up, even under direct gunfire, the situation was even more suspicious. It also showed that whoever these people were, they were professionals. The Coast Guard was able to catch footage of a man on the deck trying to suppress the fire with blankets, while other crew members were caught with an infrared camera throwing something from the moving boat into the water. What were they trying to get rid of? And what was the boat hiding? By this point, it seemed like Japan's Coast Guard had the upper hand. However, nobody aboard knew that this was just the beginning and the situation would escalate to something much more dangerous. The day had turned into night and the chase was still ongoing. The Coast Guard decided to prepare for a possible full-scale boarding operation in order to seize the ship, which imposed a huge danger to them as they still didn't know who this boat belonged to and if they had weapons on board. They slowly approached the ship in order to attempt a forced boarding operation while illuminating the ship with their searchlights, during which one of the crew members was seen on the deck waving them to go away and shouting "back off" in Korean. This was the final clue. The language, the aggressive evasion, the military-style coordination, and most of all, the ship's unusual double-hatch stern, designed to deploy smaller boats, a feature seen before on spy vessels, all pointed to one direction. What they were trying to stop was a North Korean infiltration mission in progress. As the Coast Guard brought their ship close to the target in preparation for their assault, the North Koreans were left with no escape and they seemed to have decided that they weren't going to be taken alive. An RPG missile was shot towards the Coast Guard from the North Korean ship, followed by a barrage of heavy machine gun fire. The Japanese immediately turned off their searchlights and began retreating as hundreds of bullets hit their ships, injuring 3 people on board. The Coast Guard sustained significant damage, losing their radar and even their engine. But as their weapon systems were still online, they were able to fight back by returning the fire, which began a firefight at the sea against the North Koreans. A full-scale battle like this in contested waters against a nuclear-armed state was something Japan had never faced in its modern history, and with an unpredictable enemy like the North Koreans, the risk of escalation was undeniable. A single miscalculation here could have dragged both nations into something far more dangerous. After less than 3 minutes of fierce exchange of gunfire, at 10:13 p.m., a message was intercepted from the ship saying to the party, "This child will remain your loyal subject forever." After which, in a dramatic ending, the suspicious ship suddenly self-destructed, caught on fire, and rapidly sank beneath the waves, ending the firefight. In the aftermath of the explosion, Japanese patrol vessels scrambled to find survivors. Life vests were thrown into the sea, but many of the North Koreans refused them, choosing instead to sink with the ship. At one point, a group of 15 men were seen clinging to a driftwood among the waves, but as there were serious fears that the survivors might resist capture violently or even detonate hidden explosives, the Coast Guard was ordered not to intervene and leave them to the sea. With the ship and the crew gone, questions remained unanswered. What was their mission and what were they trying to hide? What was it that they threw into the ocean during the chase? And why did they choose to self-destruct? To find answers, in the days that followed, Japan launched one of the largest maritime search operations in its history. For 17 days, the search covered a vast area of ocean with hundreds of vessels and aircraft deployed, including units from the military. To locate the wreck itself, they brought in specialized ships and divers capable of finding its location, which later on was confirmed to be deep on the ocean floor. If Japan wanted to uncover the North Koreans' true mission, raising the ship was the only option. And after months of planning, delays and dangerous work at sea, the spy ship was raised from the ocean floor and brought back to the surface almost a year after it sank. Today, the ship is on display in a museum in Yokohama, including many items that were found in the wreckage, such as an incredible number of weapons like machine guns and rocket launchers that were used in the fight against the Coast Guard, spy equipment used during missions, and even the self-destruct switch used in the final moments is out on display. Investigators were able to recover information from the equipment found in the ship, which proved connections to North Korean assets in Japan, including even people in the local Yakuza. I myself was surprised by the small size of the ship and kept thinking how insane you have to be to stay in it for long periods out in the ocean, in the end, only to fight against the Japanese Coast Guard and self-destruct in the process. These guys were really something else. But the one thing I still can't stop thinking about is what was it that they threw into the sea? What could have been so important that all of them were willing to die for it?